This is Jenny-Jaymes Gunn. I am a community advocate here in Charlotte, North Carolina for LGBT women's rights with the National Organization for Women, gun sense laws with Moms and Men Action, and anything that extends equity to all. Thank you.
Good evening. This is Barb Bacon. I'm a community advocate here in South Charlotte. Generally, I drive people around and to doctor's appointments, and I'm getting ready to have my sign-up list for taking people to vote. Buttons, once again, I believe in healthcare for all. I've got some people that don't believe in Medicare for all. Gun violence, let's get some control of guns, and Black Lives Matter in honor of our friend Joel that passed away last year. So that's it, guys.
Hey, I'm Christian Cano. You're the co-host. My buttons are Moms and Men Action, gun sense legislation, healthcare for all, Medicare for all, and also in my heart, Black Lives Matter on behalf of Joe Oldham, who's a guest of ours who passed away last year. That's it.
Good morning, everybody. We're rocking a little Tejano mix tonight. It's actually literally the song's called Tejano Mix because it's several famous Texas LatinX Hispanic performers and
you get good Tejano music.
What?
You play good Tejano music. I said you play good Tejano music. So
yeah, well, I got better taste of music than you do. But good morning, everybody. It is Coffee Pan Dulce time, and we're into the last Wednesday of the month here.
We made it.
We are coming down the backstretch, so to speak, in horse racing vernacular. And I mean, by the time that we're already in early voting here in North Carolina. Yep. Actually, most parts of the United States right now for our midterms, and hopefully deciding to keep a democracy safe by voting out Republicans. And how are you, Christian? It looks like it's just going to be the power hour of us here.
Yeah. You know us. Thank you, Jen. As Jenny said, welcome everyone to Coffee Pan Dulce. I'm Chris. See how I did that? Coffee and Pan Dulce. That's a little exaggerated. Welcome everyone to Coffee and Pan Dulce. I'm Christian Cano, one of your co-hosts, along with Jenny Gunn, Barb Bacon. We're hoping Barb is going to be joining us. She had a very important meeting to go to here in Charlotte, and we're hoping that maybe she can join us. Thank you to those who are joining us on Facebook Live, but also those who join us on YouTube, and the thousands who listen to us on your favorite audio podcast platform. I want to tell you, last week's politics show, once again, the comments were coming in, right? And we had almost 3,000 views, and I think it's 13,000 listeners. So who would have thought?
Well, I mean, obviously, there was several white MAGA Republicans, including one that said he's not a Republican or a MAGA. Yeah. Obviously, but he repeats all
the talking points,
gaslighting line, and talks in circles. And I'm like, you quack like a duck and you waddle like a duck, you probably are a duck. But if you don't believe you're a duck, okay. But we did a lot of wackos came out of the woods, so to speak, to weigh in on a show they didn't even watch. Literally,
exactly. If they watched it.
I don't think they watched it. I think every one of the comments pretty much was about the title of it.
Yes,
but I didn't see any comments, including the one wacko I battled with, that actually talked about the show.
Yeah.
And so I thought it was very
that's the case.
It was most of a reaction to the title of the show, which, it was politics. And I found that that show's commentary, similar to the Latinx Hispanic Heritage Month posting, was really more about the content of the post rather than the actual show itself.
And that's the true definition of a troll. They don't really want to watch it. They just want to complain about something they haven't watched. And that's why it's just comical for me every time someone posts something like Latinx is a racist term and all that kind of stuff. I'm like, if you watch the show, we say use whatever term you feel comfortable with. If you don't like Latinx, don't use the term.
But MAGAs.
Yeah, I know.
They don't let those little pesky little facts and details and historical facts ever get in the way.
Words are hard.
They want to talk about, like the data and science and stuff like all those big fancy processes.
Yeah.
That's the Bible's got everything they need to know, according to them.
That's right. Well, as Jenny said, thank you those who are not going to watch this, but are going to comment because then it gets people to watch it because they're like, oh my God, it's got 3,000 views. It must be an important show. So thank you so much for those who comment, watch us, everything that you do to keep us doing this. Before we start the show, let's go ahead and salute to our neighbor. Jenny, I found a bag. I was cleaning up this here, and I found a bag of coffee cups that our friend of the show, former friend of the show, Tara Long, gave us, and she gave it to us right before the pandemic started.
Yeah.
So we never met again. I have about 5 coffee cups. One of them, I think it's for you. It says "Mama needs her coffee" or something on it, and they're really cute, coffee cups. Yeah. So I'm going to try to, Tara, if you do watch the show still, I want to say thank you for all these. We're going to try to use them. I'll have to give them to you next time I see you, Jen, and then drop some off to Barbara.
I completely. I remember when she brought them too.
Yeah,
she brought us.
Yeah, I remember.
Even our former libertarian co-host, she brought one too.
That's right. Yeah, and I got 5 of them. They're really nice. I'm like,
no, they were
spent some cash on those.
Nice and thoughtful. Of course, it was when we were still, for people who have not watched this show before the pandemic hit, because we've been doing this off and on since 2018, or for me off and on. And so we had almost 2 years of programming before the pandemic. So we met in show in person, and we gathered around Christian's little breakfast nook table, and it was a lot more homey, and there, had a little tablecloths, and it was very dainty and cute, and I always made the joke it looked like a lesbian knitting club or something gathered there right before we did, and like, dear Marsha, but anyway, it was but so when we got after it, we were in person, and so there was many times.
That's right.
There was many times I was pretty close to me coming over the table on some of our less than intelligent guests that we had, and
you and Mama Ruth sat to the right because she always thought she was right.
I sat right.
I remember that much.
Right over her too. But anyway,
and then Jeff and whoever it was at the time would sit to the left of us.
Which is weird.
Which is ironic, because it would be in reversal. So, all right. I got to thank our sponsor supplier. Get out of frame here so I can bend over.
You are going to have to learn how to put that up on the table, though, because every time you get out, you keep talking.
Okay. All right. Sorry. We want to thank our producer, sponsor, and supplier, Manolo's Bakery. Manolo's Bakery here in Charlotte, North Carolina. Please don't forget to support your small businesses, especially your Black and brown small businesses, and buy local as we get into the holiday season. Order your tamales and all those wonderful things from Manolo's Bakery.
And Manolo's Bakery has a phenomenal amount of food. It's amazing. Their food all melts in your mouth. Their little cinnamon sugar, whatever kind of magic that they make on that donuts, those little donuts.
Yeah, I got 2 more left.
I mean, I literally
so many.
would eat my way out of my clothes if I stopped in there very often. But the food is phenomenal.
It is.
And especially for the food holidays coming up, like Thanksgiving,
and
Festivus,
cakes, all kinds of stuff that they've got there.
Don't forget about them, and there's Latin bakeries pretty much all over the country. So shopping small, especially in this day and age of huge evil companies like Amazon and Walmart, stuff like that, people should think about buying Christmas gifts and your foodstuffs from local independent marketplaces, farmers markets, and ethnic restaurants and bakeries that have to overcome not only global pandemics and shortages, inflation, but also have to overcome the massive juggernauts of businesses and compete. I know I come from a family of small business owners that had to do that all the time.
Excellent. Good point, Jen. We don't have to introduce ourselves because that's now in the beginning of our show. It's a video that we made. But we do want to thank Democracy Bernie and DACA Baby Trump Pinata for sitting in on us for a while. They're going to be leaving us, so it's just going to be Jenny and I. And if Barbara joins us, you can see our faces larger, or you can just hear us. You can't hear them. They just like to listen to what we say. 3 current events in 30 seconds or less. The very first current event, there was an incident that occurred in Oklahoma. And these 2 Trump supporters walked into a bank in Oklahoma and tried to exchange their Trump bucks, which aren't real bucks, but they will try to exchange them for regular cash. They were told these are not real. They're just, it says on it, not real. They swore they paid money for them, that they even asked for a supervisor. The supervisor and first the teller kind of laughed. She thought they were joking, but they were dead serious. They end up leaving and say they were so upset they're never going to come back to the bank. They're going to Bank of America to try to cash these, exchange these bags. So that is, when I read that, I just could not stop laughing. The second one, in North Carolina, there are several people running for Congress that have failed to file their FEC, it's technically the FEC, their financial disclosure form. The financial disclosure form is something, if you're a federal candidate, you have to file every year, and they give you the time to do. And basically, you talk about what you're worth, any special interest. It's not the same as the one you have to file every quarter. That's what the Federal Elections Commission, that is how much money you raise. This talks about what you're worth if you have debt and all kinds of stuff, because they want to know that. Well, there are 4 candidates here. 2 of them are Republican, 2 of them are Democrat, running for Congress that failed to file. They give you a year to file it. Anyway, I don't know if you have any comments on that. The last one, there's a wonderful article that dropped this weekend from the New York Times, and the title is The America Vanishing. Their America is vanishing like Trump. They insist they were cheated. It's an article about these used to be rural areas outside of the big cities. This one's about Texas and Virginia, and how a lot of these people who live in those areas are really some of the most diehard Trump supporters and election deniers, and they basically feel like their way of life or so forth. And so, Jen, I know you probably we talked very briefly about this, but do you have any comments on any of those 3 issues?
Sure. No, nice. Idiot. Changing in their Trump monopoly money for real cash. Proof why we need really good, strong public schools. My gosh, if we got to stop defunding public schools and shuffling it off to these fake ass, segregated, racist, stupid ass wannabe private school systems and divvying up the money, because those 2 mouth breathers are proof of that. My gosh, talk about the need for late term abortions. Do we have a return policy on idiots? Like, they're de facto great. The 4 candidates were too stupid to file their shit. I got no sympathy for you. We should rethink allowing people, including the Democrats. I've never run for office, and I know that you got to do that.
Yeah.
Okay. You know, that's a minimum idiot test right there. I mean, let's just be truthful about it. Like, it's shameful, especially for the two Democrats. I expect that kind of crap from Republicans, but come on, guys, get it together.
Yeah, I mean, one of the Republicans is running against Jeff Jackson, his opposition. Yeah, and so I'm surprised. That dude. I mean,
that dude's his elevator doesn't hit the top floor on a lot of things.
That's right.
Not a shock at all. He'd probably get lost in a bathroom. But yeah, as far as the mouth breathers out there in Texas and Virginia, and living in the places where family reunion sex is common, it boils down to racism. It boils down to people that, honestly, it's just they wish for something that never should have happened. And and I said some key things off the air, but honestly, they're wishing for an America that is deeply divided and racist. They want segregation back. They want things that is shameful and embarrassing. And some of that's because we didn't teach history right. We should shame the Confederacy. We should never let stuff like that happen. There's many schools that don't even talk about the Holocaust anymore, as we're seeing the anti-Semitism coming out from the West Coast, and just the fact that any American would complain about Black and brown people moving out to their area is just, it's not only shocking, but it's just like, and they don't view us as Americans. They look at us and they don't see both sides. They don't care to see both sides. They just call us commies and just all kinds of brutal names. And they would round, as we saw during the MPX monkeypox outbreak this summer, we saw many Republicans sitting Congress people saying, we need to get camps and round up the homosexuals and put them in camps. As I've always said, they would gladly put us in camps or kill us if they could. And unfortunately, too many Democrats see them as human. They see their side of it. And I got to say, Christian, there's many times you're guilty of that too. And I think that's what hurts us. I think that's what makes us lay up on them a little bit too much. And if we want to win midterms and presidentials and things like that, and quite frankly, we got to see them as the enemy, because they're an enemy to democracy. We've got to stop allowing the both sidism and thinking they're just going to go away. These idiots fought to take away abortion and reproductive rights for 50 years and fought until they could win. So these people are quitting. So we shouldn't quit either.
That's a good point, Jen. I agree with what you're saying. The Trump cash thing, I thought was just
that's fucking funny.
I don't know. It's hilarious. It's just, I don't know. It just speaks. I didn't even say anything. It just, the jokes just write themselves on that one. The other one, the financial disclosure one, I agree with you. I think it's like, it would be like going to apply for a job, which is what they're doing. We talk about this all the time, and then forgetting to give them their resume at the interview. You always carry a copy of your resume, because they will always ask, do you have a copy of the resume? Just in case. If they don't want it, they don't want it. That was plus it's actually a requirement. It's you could actually be fined, and exactly. And so and then the Vanish in America, I just want to read you two paragraphs from the New York Times. They talked to this political scientist, and it says, a shrinking white share of the population is a hallmark of the congressional district held by House Republicans who voted to change Trump's defeat. The New York Times analysis found that it's called white fear. They're afraid of losing their status. And another one I thought was very interesting. It says that these type of Republicans found that their constituents lagged behind in income. They also lagged behind in education, And the rates of deaths of despair, it's a term they use for people who die of suicide, drug overdose, and alcohol-related liver failure, is highest in these areas. And this is, you and I had this kind of conversation off camera. But one of the things that I completely agree with you, one of the things that these individuals don't understand, especially the ones that have maybe the lower education and so forth, Black and brown people don't want to aspire to have their lives. Their lives are shitty. We don't want their lives. Mm-hmm. We aspire to be like the people that we admire. So yeah, it is. We do admire, there are families like mine that maybe move out to those communities and they want the image of that kind of success. But there are Black and brown people that have moved that live in these areas before these individuals lived. So they just don't want the article. They don't want a lot of them there. And so I do think that it's very interesting. It's kind of delusional for these individuals, especially these MAGA Republicans. And you and I joke about this all the time. No one wants to. I don't want to take over their lives. I want to take over I want someone's life who's successful. So, well, I'm not going to be flippant like that, but do you know what I mean? But does that make any sense? You know what I'm trying to say? Yeah.
First of all, anybody with half a brain would move out to those shithole places anyway. There's nothing to do. They're miserable, and you got a bunch of grumpy conservative white people that hate everybody. I mean, they hate themselves. And these fools I've run into in different places. I've got some family members that article exactly describes, that are racist, homophobic, xenophobic, wackos. They're just wackos, including my family members. They're just hateful, trashy people that are so cruel and so hell-bent on hating everything. You just want to wonder what they like.
That's a good point. That should be the commercial.
Point, you literally
just tell us what magazine. Yeah,
everything that's America. Like America used to. I remember when we were kids, we always talked about the Great American Melting Pot. But as soon as I guess the chocolate and cinnamon flavors melt into the melting pot, oh no, the vanilla. Like, we just want the Western European blonde hair, blue-eyed Aryan looking people. Yeah, like, we don't want any. Hey, even if you've got a little bit of a tan, we don't trust you. And it's so weird. I mean, and to me, a lot of those people that move out to those, especially white people, typically are either moving because they failed in the big city and they fell on their ass. They move out there and they move on to their family land because they can live there cheap, or their grandma's basement or something. Except a lot of trailers don't have basements, but or the second,
maybe they have to build it.
Dig something out with their backhoe, or the front hoe. But anyway, or the other deal is they're running from something. Yeah, and you see that a lot in those rural areas. I lived in the Ozarks and lived in a tourism town called Branson, Missouri, and you saw a lot of that. You saw a lot of just religious wackos, like the Jim Baker fans. When he got out of prison, he moved there, and all of his little cult members followed him there. You just see these extremes, these alt-right Unabomber types and wannabes. Just they love it out in remote areas, and no normal human being wants to live in a place like that. You gotta have something wrong with you to live like that.
Hey, we're going to take our first break, Jen, and then I have a question about the Ozarks. It's kind of a funny question, but we're going to be right back in Coffee and Pan Dulce in 30 seconds. We'll be right back. Hey, everyone. Thank you so much for watching our Coffee and Pan Dulce show every week. Don't forget, you can watch us visually on our video podcast platforms on Facebook and YouTube, but you can also listen to us on your favorite audio podcast platforms like Apple, Amazon, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and all of the other ones that your favorite, whatever your favorite is. Once again, thank you for watching us on Coffee and Pan Dulce. We'll dance out. Well, welcome back. And hey, Jenna, I've been wanting to ask you this, and since we got to fill 59 minutes here. Today's topic, by the way, in case you don't know it, today's topic is part 3 of our series that we've had. We've had 2 other shows. PBS Taxpayer Funded All White Media It's a question. Basically, it's asking, has it changed since our last show? I think it was in February. Got some interesting things. I don't know if you have been watching PBS. I do, because it's all we get up in the mountains is PBS. And so, unless you stream something. So Jen, you know that show, The Ozark, that was on Netflix that had, what's his name? Is it anything like that? Have you seen that show? People could hear that. That's the dueling banjos. So is it like that? I mean, I know the show was a movie. Yeah.
It's worse. It's way worse than the TV show. It's
okay.
It's places like Branson, Missouri are dystopian shitholes too. Like they shove Christian nationalism down your throat. You can't even go in a fucking McDonald's without them having Bible thumping music in there. I'm like,
wow,
it's miserable.
Yeah. Well,
I'm not sure what I was thinking why I lived there so long.
Yeah.
But it absolutely is one of the most crooked, evil, drug-filled, miserable places. Now, it's a great place to visit because you don't see any of that, because you're in there for a few days, maybe a week. You're staying at a timeshare, and then you go. But to live
you
there,
don't see the dirt behind the scenes.
Yeah, you know, that's with any resort town. You just don't see the wackiness. But you know, those Ozark shows don't even show the worst parts of the Ozarks.
Okay, well, it looked beautiful. Look, I mean, you know, the shows look beautiful, but the people,
no, the Ozarks are beautiful. I mean, they're similar to, if you've been to like Eastern Tennessee with like Gatlinburg and Pigeon Forge and stuff like that. So, you know, Branson straddles the Mark Twain National Forest. You have the Ozarks Greenbelt and you know, hills and mountains, and it's one of the oldest mountain chains in the United States. Geography is absolutely beautiful. It's actually breathtaking. But the wackiness of that place is just, it's like living in the Ku Klux. If the Ku Klux Klan and a religious cult had a paradise, it's Branson. It literally, the Ku Klux Klan National Headquarters is only 20 miles away.
So you know, I want to start talking about this topic, but also I kind of want to jump back to what you said about that article, because it's kind of, I would imagine some of these people that live in these districts, these MAGA districts, I guess they're calling them.
Well, it has a lot to do with PBS. I mean, because to me, PBS is in many ways is the last bastion of whiteness and, you know, stale Americana. I mean, a lot of the stuff. I mean, they'll take the kids program out of the equation, like all the Sesame Street.
Because they have a separate channel now for just the kids. Yeah.
But the adult programming, especially at night, I've never had an interest in PBS. Honestly, I sometimes forget it's even on the air. You know, local programming like that typically is not that good. I like a specific kind of TV, so this is actually one of the least interesting topics to me.
I know. That's why I know.
Which is why I think it's your way of saying, I'm the producer, and I like to take a shot at Jenny every once in a while because you're a smart ass.
No, listen. No. Hey, listen.
Chris and I are we're best friends. We're really close friends out there. So some of our inside jokes don't interpret real well. And Christian is a horrible smart ass. He really is. On air and really off air, he's much worse. And so he picked some topics.
My timing is not always
going to bore me and give me a red ass. This happens to be one of them. So chapter number 3 of this is just as dumb as chapter number 1. Begrudgingly, I let him pick the topics because he will cry if I don't.
Okay, so to be fair, it has changed a tiny bit. So I have seen some shows that are produced. They're not produced out of North Carolina. They're produced in other PBS markets. And usually the local station produces a show and they sell them to all the other PBS shows, the affiliates, so to speak. Have seen 2 or 3 shows now where the host is actually a person of color. They've let the lady that does Patty's Mexican Kitchen. Now she does some things where she travels to Mexico and she does other things. So it is nice to see those shows. But still, if you look at the PBS lineup, about 70% of the lineup is either just about old white people who live in castles in England, or the hosts are older white people who travel or cook or do things or, or sell houses. It is, there's not a lot of, in the evenings, they do have these specials, these documentaries, like for Hispanic Heritage Month, they did this wonderful documentary. And that's so, and I keep saying this, PBS is still a network that is educating white people. They're not made for us. They're made about us. And I do hope that we continue. I do hope that as the younger producers come into these stations, like the one who messaged us the last time we did our show, that they will start reflecting. I'll give you an example. Here in North Carolina, their big political show, which is produced out of Raleigh, I guess the Raleigh PBS station there. It's called something Mark Rondeman's Frontline or Front whatever. He's an older white guy. This week, his guest was Newt Gingrich. Completely out of. I don't think he understood how completely inappropriate that is to have a guy who doesn't believe that this election actually, and he was talking about his book, his new book that he wrote, and so forth. And so that is the power of. He can, he decides he's going to be on a show.
But don't you think that this encapsulates PBS in a nutshell? I mean, that one tragic, first of all, Newt Gingrich doesn't even live in North Carolina, so you're not even talking about North Carolina. Like he's former Speaker of the House from Georgia.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's just a wacko himself and just been discredited and was just one of the worst Speaker of the House the United States. Probably the only worst one was, of course, the pedophile. Obviously he was the worst one. But Newt Gingrich was a close second behind that fool. But just what Newt Gingrich is just a shit human being. Yeah. And what does it have to do with North Carolina, especially when we have nationally followed a top 5 Senate fucking race?
You couldn't have Sherry Beasley. You couldn't have Ted Budd.
I mean, or it's even have party officials come on and talk about their campaign managers or their assistants to their assistants. Why would you have a washed up, has been, wannabe historian that has probably never told the truth in his life since he was born, has horrible fucking hair, and is about as entertaining and it is about as valid or relative in this day and age as friggin' dinosaurs. In fact, dinosaurs are more interesting than Newt Gingrich. But when you talk about a mouth breather, and you have him on because he just penciled out a new book with his crayons, the little fat ones, because those are probably the only ones he can hold now. Like, I didn't even know Newt Gingrich was still alive. That's how irrelevant he is. Like,
he's a huge Trump guy. Yeah, he's a huge MAGA guy. He's all about the white nationalist. He's a racist, homophobic fool. But that's my point, Jenny, is that here in North Carolina, in most states, the PBS, the public broadcasting system is actually an umbrella under the University of North Carolina system. It's under their school of journalism or school, and then of course every local station like here in Charlotte is funded by that. Plus it's also funded by donation viewers like you. Taxpayers, us, are funding the foundation of PBS. And you would think that they would be more, maybe we shouldn't have someone, or if you're going to have someone like this, maybe have someone else with the second part of his show. He gave the whole show to him. An hour,
or have something relevant. Nobody cares. About him. I didn't care about him when he was waddling around America, lying in the 1990s when he was a Speaker of the House. I was hoping he'd fall into that. I literally, why would the world? But see, that's how irreverent PBS really is. When you base it on what you want to put on the air.
And not what the demographic is. Sure. Well, that's a good point. Let's take our second break, and we'll be right back. And I have one more question to ask you, and then we'll be right back on Coffee Pan Dulce right after this. Howdy, everyone. I'm Christian Cano with the Coffee Pan Dulce Show, based out of Charlotte, North Carolina. I just want to remind everyone that we have less than 22 days, I think, 22 days to vote on November the 8th. And I just want to urge everyone to get out there and vote. If you're not registered to vote, you can actually register, I believe, day of in North Carolina during early voting. But also, please remember to grab your neighbor, grab a tia, a tío, a mija, a mijo, grab someone who's eligible to vote and registered to vote, and take them out to vote. This election is so important, as every election is. But remember, you only have about 22 days left, so there's a link that's going to be on the bottom here. Follow that link if you need more information about getting out to vote. And once again, please get out to vote like your family's future depends on it, because our families do. Thank you. Get out to vote. Well, thank you so much. And that commercial was telling you why it's important to vote here on November 8th. So please get out and vote if you haven't already. During early voting, as Jenny said, early voting is going on in many states. In North Carolina, we're the second week of early voting, or actually almost the second week. So anyway, with that said, something happened that I thought was hilarious. You know, we go to the mountains quite often, and unfortunately, you cannot get cell service. The only television stations we can get is PBS, the 4 PBS stations. And so, of the 4 PBS stations, I usually just have them on in the camper and in the background, changing them, and endlessly. Now we have the ability to stream, other things endlessly. There's always some show that where it's Downton Abbey, and I know that's kind of an older show, but Doc Martin, all of the shows, their hit shows that are on at night, are out of England, are about English history. And my joke has always been, well, the reason they must keep producing these period pieces is because they don't want to hire any black actors or any Hispanic actors, because there weren't any Hispanic kings in England. And then, so I always watch those, and I kind of just change them because I can't stand, it's not relevant to me. My other half was in the camper and was watching. I was changing, and he blurted out, "Can't they do history on America?" Everything is about English history on PBS. And I don't mean to sound like an American first person, but I'm saying at the least 51% of the shows should be about American taxpayers, American shows. Or can't they hire some shows from Mexico or heck, Ireland or Australia? Almost all of their shows are like shows that you could tell they bought maybe from the BBC. So I just thought it was interesting that even other people who don't watch PBS, if you just look at their lineup, you look at all these, they're all dressed in like period pieces. They're all, even there's one, Jen, hold on one second. There's one about this detective guy, and he's in Jamaica, and they have English accents, and all the detectives are white, and they're in Jamaica, and it's like, periodically they have like a police officer who looks like a Jamaican or the Caribbean and so forth. But the main characters, there's 4 main characters, and they're all white detectives. And it's like, anyway, I don't know if you want to comment on that, and maybe this is not going to be a very interesting topic.
Well, I mean, I guess it really ties into the Texas and the white flight, and white people want to live out in rural areas to get away from the undesirables and then the big fancy cities, and it kind of ties in from the fact that there's a certain segment of white America that is so out there. They literally erase so much history and multicultural history. The fact that there was people of color here, there's dozens and dozens of nations and tens of millions of people in flourishing societies when we got here. There's so many great American stories that have nothing to do with white people. And, exactly. I mean, we share the Americas with most of the nations in North and South America are countries led by and ruled by and dominated by people of color, including the Caribbean islands, right off the coast of the United States and other, North and South American countries. And all those are people of color, and the erasure of all those cultures, and over almost over 1 billion people, just they're Americans too. North America, South America, where they're all part of that American tapestry. And the fact that United States residents, citizens, think we're the only Americans, and we're not. And that just says how dense some of our conservative neighbors are. And the fact that if you go live in like Europe or Africa or places where there's a lot of smaller countries and it's easier to do interstate or inter-country travel, like you can go to Europe and you can, in a matter of hours, you can cross through several different countries, and you're used to different cultures and languages, and just and those countries are bustling with multiculturalism themselves. And you come here to America, and you got a certain part of the population that absolutely has fought tooth and nail for segregation, 1619 to now. It's not even changed. But you see it in the examples of this PBS show, that there's so many relevant people of color in North Carolina that are leaders and mayors and office holders and people running for office. And you got to take an old has-been, like Newt Gingrich. Who gives a shit if he's running the book? He's a piece of shit. Who cares? What would that? Who's going to read that book? Because the majority of the people he's aiming that towards, which is probably full of fucking historical lies and shit that he made up himself. Most of those people can't read. So is there a picture version? I gotta ask: is there a picture version of Newt's book? Because clearly those mouth breathers, the reason why they liked Rush Limbaugh is because he didn't. Rush might have wrote some books or somebody wrote for him. And that's that big old tub of air. Thank God he's dead. He did a radio show because they could just listen to it, which is suited for them. But
you know what, Jenny, and I know on the first show that we did on PBS, I had said that to me the dangers of, I know you say, well, who watches it? And I don't watch it and so forth. But to me the danger of it, if it continues to be all the way it is now, the danger is there is this people who donate to PBS. Most people only think of PBS as the documentaries in the evenings, or about slavery or about whatever it is. That's only like 10% of the schedule. And they have, and every market has 4 PBS stations. There's one that's dedicated just to kids. It's all cartoons. It's called the Rudel. And then they have the other 3, one's outdoors, one's, they have all of these shows. Of all of the other shows, if it does not reflect the reality that people are there, those people who live up in the mountains in North Carolina, those people who don't have access to cable and so forth, they think that the entire America is white British because that's all they see. You know what I mean? And so to me, it's dangerous because little kids don't realize.
How's it dangerous? Because those people already believe that.
Well, no, I know, but
I mean, these are fans of white Jesus. So I mean,
that's a good point.
Not to be too pointed at this, though. But the kind of people that would watch PBS typically only believe in white America. Because they live in an area where they maybe only be able to get that, or they don't have internet for whatever reason.
Exactly.
But honestly, they like it that way. Like, you're not talking about somebody. So, I mean, if PBS was really upsetting their audience, they'd be getting flooded with letters.
Exactly.
I guarantee you, if you put a bunch of black and brown people on there, they would blow those stations up.
That was kind of what I was going to say.
They tolerate, the Hispanic lady that's cooking because she's cooking. She's not like
exactly
trying to teach
surely that's all she could do.
She's cleaning house or cooking or mowing a lawn. They think, well, that's she's one of the good ones. She's one of the good brown ones. I mean, let's just make this a little real for a second.
Yeah. No, Patty.
It's not like we have AOC on there talking about the Green New Deal with a bunch of charts and stuff like that, or Morgan Freeman talking about God particles and stuff like that, or Degrassi, or somebody like that talking about physics and quantum time leaps. We're talking about a person of color, a brown lady that is getting on there cooking. Yeah. And I guarantee you that's what they think of Latinx people up in the mountains of North Carolina. That's they probably love the fact that they had Newt Gingrich on there. That's probably one of their personal heroes, even though they can't even spell the word book. But so I mean, let's get to the brass tacks of this.
Sure. Well, and that's one of the things.
They're literally appealing to the audience that literally thinks PBS is educational when they're talking about the primetime programming. Because that's all they want to see is white people.
No, exactly. And this is, I wish Barbara was on, because Barbara loves Masterpiece Theater on PBS. She's a huge, she loves it. And if you watch Masterpiece Theater, they do movies. Sometimes they have a series, sometimes they have movies. I would say that 80% of them are England, British based, or Scotland based. It's a movie about, period piece, kind of like Downton Abbey-ish kind of things or whatever. It's mysteries and so forth. And so my fear is that the people like Barbara who watch Masterpiece Theater, and I wish she was on so I could ask her this question, they think as the BBC, because this is where they buy all the stuff from, because apparently they don't want to buy things from American, or I don't know how that, because I know the British government subsidizes the BBC so they can produce these shows.
I mean, most of your streaming channels probably going to put out racist garbage like that.
Yeah.
Just to buy it. Maybe because they can't sell it because it's not available anymore, just like they probably wouldn't put out blackface TV shows either, like Amos and Andy or something like that. To put a brass tack on it, it is market forces speaking from the fact that the only people that are going to air crap like that is going to be something that market forces don't affect them. They're not going to go out of business because they're subsidized, which is fine. Yeah. I can care less about PBS. Yeah. I don't think it. I think the only way it's relevant and in the discussion is the fact that it tells you a lot about the mindset of white America.
Sure.
A certain group of white Americans that think that this programming is very important. And that's, if they had to go by market forces, which I'm glad they don't. I'm glad that they still have kids program. I'm glad there is a certain audience, there is a certain necessity for PBS. But honestly, at the end of the day, it's kind of like, if a tree falls in the forest, and there's nobody there to see it, did it really make a noise or whatever? If PBS went out of business tomorrow, it wouldn't affect my life at all.
Well,
I wouldn't notice any different.
We're going to take our last break, and then we'll talk about what happens if they do go out of business, because that was actually a comment I had. We'll be right back on Coffee Pan Dulce. This last commercial talks about a show that comes on 30 minutes after this that Jenny leads. It's called Two Queers in a Truck, and I'm surprised these MAGA people don't post on that show. So, anywho, I'm not trying to encourage them. I'm just saying is that, all right, so Jenny's going to tell you about Two Queers in a Truck on this next commercial. We'll be right back on Coffee and Pan Dulce.
Up next is Two Queers in a Truck with Jenny and Christian. And hope you guys tune in. We'll see you in about 15 to 20 minutes. Thank you. Bye. All
right, well, welcome back. And don't forget to watch Jenny's show that she leads 30 minutes from now on Wednesdays. It drops at 11:30, Two Queers in a Truck. So, Jenny, here's my question. As we take this on Mondays, and we had some very bad news today that came out that Leslie Jordan, the actor, passed away today in a car, in a single car accident, I believe, in California. He was 67 years old, I believe. It was
I was actually going to cover
very tragic. Yeah, that was very, very, very tragic. But also today was announced that Great Britain, their new prime minister is a very first person of color prime minister in their history. So to me, that's a little sign of encouragement, because the prime minister, like the president here in the United States, has a lot of influence on how things occur. I'm hoping that the BBC will start producing shows that are more reflective of the diversity of England and Great Britain, because those are the shows we buy. My fear is exactly what you said. If people who watch PBS now start to see 40% shows on PBS that are like Black and Brown, it's going to start, we want our PBS back. You know what I mean? And they're going to mandate that we stop funding PBS. So what my whole point is, it would be better for the current PBS stations to now start changing slowly now to get their consumers used to it, because it's going to happen. You know, it's going to happen. The shows will eventually become more diverse. There's only so many people who really love Downton Abbey. It's usually older white people who are retired. There's other people who, you know, like some white gays like it because they think it's reality. It's not even a real castle. You know, I mean, it's you know. Anyway, so what are your thoughts? What do you think PBS? If you were the programming director, like the queen of PBS, what would you do if they said, they were watching this and they said, Jenny, what can we do over the next decade, 10 years, to change PBS?
Well, I mean, there's a ton of independent filmmakers that create films and documentaries that go to, you know, that here in Charlotte, we have the LGBT film festival called Real Out Charlotte. And it's one of my favorite things that Charlotte Pride does. I'm also heavily involved in film screening of what gets shown for that week that we show films, and they all come from major independent filmmakers. And there's not just independent LGBT films. There's LGBT films of all types that are played in places like Sundance and you know, South by Southwest and all these other great American film festivals, and tons of other types of film festivals too. That are free, that you can go on Phil Frameway and you go on and screen it and see if it's appropriate for, you know, for programming, and put them on PBS. And they can do that now. They know they can do that now. They have access to it. They choose not to.
Yep.
And so, and this is, you know, this type of programming's been, I mean, Sundance has been in business, 20, 30, 40 years. You know, film festivals are nothing new. And are just as artistic as all the boring ass BBC, you know, talk shows like you know, and especially a lot of colleges and universities have film and arts majors, and they got tons of resources. It doesn't take that long to screen TV shows, films, and there's even series on, you know, some of these things, and there's so many opportunities. And when you think about, there's actually some high production level shows produced and aired on YouTube and other Roku, and there's so many opportunities this day and age of streaming and all this, and the technology is all there to produce this. Tomorrow they could completely change their lineup if they wanted to, and not cost them a dime to put these on the air. They choose not to. They choose to put jackasses like Newt Gingrich on a North Carolina show. And therein lies the problem, is this has nothing to do with capability, access, or anything like this. This is a problem of willful ignorance and racism and xenophobia. This is that PBS as an institution and its main programming is extremely racist and extremely useless. And if they ever want to grow an audience past older white people in areas that can't get, you know, other TV programming, there's people out there that would love to watch stuff like that, like even introducing a power hour or shaking up. But again, you're having academics that run these stations. These are people that live in the hills of North Carolina. These people live in major metropolitan areas,
exactly,
and bigger university cities. We got UNCC just up the road here in Charlotte, part of that system, and helps provide the programming. But they still choose.
Well, and that's what that's you're exactly right, Jenny. And that's to me is what's almost disappointing in this.
And not all PBS networks do that.
Yeah.
North Carolina's
exactly.
put out the crap.
Yeah.
So the PBS stations in Texas actually have quite a few diverse shows going on.
Exactly. They have things about like Texas wildlife.
Special.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's some amazing uplifting programming in other states. It's just that North Carolina and UNC in general have just choose to go this very conservative, very racist, very narrow scope of deal. And it's not even doing their viewers any deal. I doubt that most of the viewers would object if they saw a documentary on the Kenyan national parks, and the dwindling, availability of African elephants and rhinos, for example. And there's an amazing amount of non-political, very important documentaries that come out of these different film festivals. And they would actually, if you're really wanting to watch PBS for education and realness, you can pick up all these documentary people love putting them, on PBS and public education. It's a built-in partnership. So there's not, like, PBS could even have its own film festivals,
that's a good point.
Great fundraisers, and Exxon and all their sponsors that sponsor a lot of this programming love crap like that because it makes them feel good.
We do know, this is our third PBS show. We do know that people who watch PBS watch this show when we put the hashtag, because I've gotten some comments, and I know that the PBS people who produce shows. Yeah, that's right. So let me tell you, we're welcome to come on PBS, do a show, out of Charlotte. If we need to be produced out of Charlotte, I don't know if we'll accept that invitation, but they've got a great studio here in Charlotte. That's right. So, hey, Jenny, I want to circle back because we only got about 7 minutes left. I want to circle back to that New York Times article. I'm trying really hard not to use the word this word. No, not idiot. I just think that one of the things that we have in common, I think, we as in progressives, are Democrats, whatever, you don't even have to be Democrat or progressive, people who want to embrace other people. One of the things that we have and we're called elitists, we're called bougie elites. That's like their term, like it's an insulting term. One of the things that we have in common is, and I completely agree with you when you're talking about the Ozark, even white people, traditionally white people, call people who live in those areas trash. They use a different term. And that's why I want to kind of circle back. I always think it's so like naivety and arrogant for these MAGA people who live in these areas, and you kind of pointed to, they could not, like you said, they could not live in a big city. They couldn't compete. Or maybe they'd have to increase their skill set to compete. It's very competitive to live in a big city, regardless of where you work. And it's easier for us to be transferred there because there's not a lot of competition, so to speak. So I do think it is, I don't know how to say this, but it makes me so upset when I hear these MAGA people talk about, Chicago or New York or, Detroit or, the big cities, so to speak. And I know we talked about this before. I love living in a big city. There's a reason why we live in big cities, is because we like, you know what I'm saying? Is it so they're making it sound like they're making it sound like somehow we're punishing ourselves for living in a big city. Yeah. As if though they say that and we're like,
Christian, hang on a second. First of all, there's no rhyme or reason why these mouth breathers say what they say. They repeat all the crap that the RNC puts on Fox News and all their other propaganda networks to just repeat how scary Chicago is and how scary New York City is. And they use fear. Their only tactic is fear. They scare the dog shit out of their people. Oh, big city bad, fire bad, math bad, critical thinking bad. Don't think, don't read, don't write.
Drag queens bad.
Yeah, drag queens bad. I mean, come on, at some point, you got to call it what it is just blind, raw stupidity, and just the way they behave, and this. I've heard this ridiculous shit from my country cousins and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But,
I hear that.
I could never live in the big cities like you. And I'm like, no, I agree with that. I don't think you're smart enough. Like, honestly, I think I feel like you probably struggle just to survive in a shitwater town like Snyder, Texas, much less being a friggin' even the city the size of they think Lubbock, Texas is a big
it's a big city.
So you do have to be like and the second, and this is the most important thing, I don't give two shits what a MAGA thinks about me. I would have to value their opinion and respect them to actually care. And so my thing is it'd be like me being the elephant and worrying about the circle fly that circles my butt. The fly's so insignificant. Why do I care? I would actually have to care to take it as an insult. So when these MAGA psychopaths come onto our posts, which I'm grateful for because they just bump us up the algorithm, they're just not smart enough to know that. And since they don't watch the show and we're right at the end, they clearly will never hear this. But the mouth breathers, when they get on there and try to insult us, they just move us up. We just get more clicks because of that. But that's exactly the way they operate in their life.
So hey, Jen, we backfire. Yeah. So hey, we got to close the show out, but there's a commercial that is airing right now in North Carolina for the Senate race, and it is this lady. She is she's I think it's Supreme Court or something. This white lady is sitting at a table and she's drinking a coffee or something, and she was looking at some child predator or something like that, and she's talking about how Democrats and they're making life more dangerous for their kids, and I have sleepless nights because of the danger of the so forth and yet. And then at the end of the commercial, her daughter is going out trick-or-treating by herself.
Yeah.
I'm like, you stupid bitch! If you were that concerned, why do you let your daughter go out? And I don't know if anybody noticed that at the very end of the commercial, but the daughter says. And she's going trick-or-treating like a little white girl. And it's like
1 minute they're talking about every Democrat's a pedophile, and the next moment you got Dr. Oz talking about incest. You got Herschel Walker that's a deadbeat dad and threatening his son and his ex. And you got Bobbert and her pedophile husband doing donuts in people's front yards and running over their mailboxes and shooting shotguns and guns up in the air. And by the way, the Bobbert family has 2 kids that are carrying around guns too. And so you got these moron mouth breathers acting like the fools, and they want to remain in Congress. They want to get the job.
Well, and it's just it's to your point. It's a typical kind of Republican type of, especially MAGA kind of commercial. It's like, oh my gosh, danger, scare, but then you let your damn kid go trick or treating by himself. So it's like, all right, whatever. So we're going to end the show. Thank you, Jen. We carried it again. Barb, we'll see you next week, Barb. Don't forget, next week starts tomorrow, you'll see this on Wednesday the 26th. Tomorrow the 27th, we drop a special. It's called MAGA, America's War on Drag Queens. And we actually have a special guest that's on that's going to be talking with us. Drag queen goes by the name of Cece from North Carolina. And that show will actually drop on Thursday at 10:30, at 10 o'clock in the morning on Thursday, the 27th. So please look out for that show as well. You can see it on YouTube, Facebook, or podcast. So Jenny, where are you going to be in the next week in 30 seconds or less?
Well, my favorite holiday is coming up. I love Halloween. Obviously, I'm going to squeeze in some voting and create some more MAGA tiers. Vote for Sherry Beasley. Vote blue if you want your human rights and dignity kept. And vote for democracy by voting blue. And when you get a chance, go ahead and get out and vote. And then when you get another chance, go out and vote, please. It's very important. Save democracy, please.
Excellent. Thank you so much. It is Halloween weekend, your favorite holiday of the year. We will be celebrating Halloween and is it holiday weekend? Halloween weekend. And we'll be celebrating Halloween all weekend long. And then, of course, Monday night. I hope it doesn't rain here. We need rain very badly here in North Carolina. We're like in a 12-day drought. But please don't rain on Monday night, because I love passing the kids the candy out to all the neighborhood hood rats, especially when I'm drinking my beer or my wine. It just makes it that much funner. So, all right. So we will see you next week. Next week's show, once again, is actually, I didn't tell you this, but next week's show is called Voto LatinX. Can America say democracy be saved? We'll be talking about the elections that are coming up the week after. So, Jen, you have any music for us to dance out to, or should I just?
Yes, I do. I'll even switch off the dueling banjos and go back to the Tejano music. I almost forgot about that. Babe, we will go right back to the other song. And
all right. Oh, there we go. Okay. Well, thank you all. We'll see you next week on Coffee Pan Dulce. Bye-bye. Bye, Jim.
Bye. Hey, y'all. Thanks for watching. And we've had dueling banjos, a whole bunch of other things on the show. And why we shouldn't or should keep PBS around. Y'all have a great week. Thank y'all.
Bye, y'all. See you next week.
Next up, thanks for watching Coffee and Pan Dulce. Next up is Two Queers and a Truck. Stay tuned.